welcome back to News Hub, your #1 breakfast show. And we have a big discussion this morning. It's our road to 2023. And as you know, on the calendar of INEC, as we run towards the general elections, we have the campaigns right before us, and we have the actors, we have the issues, as well as we have the processes. So, we welcome this morning on News Hub, the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Omoyele Sowore. It's a pleasure to have you join us on News Hub this morning.
Thank you for bringing me.
Absolutely. I'm sure he looked at my face because he knew that we talked about a lot of things with regards to what the viewers will want us to ask you. Yes. Once again, it's so nice to have you, at least physically. We had an interview with you virtually a year or thereabout ago. So it's so nice to have you. Yeah. If you have to speak, first as a Nigerian, not a politician at this point in time, where are we as a nation?
Oh, sadly, that question has to be answered in two ways. First is that we never really got to nationhood. And I mean this seriously. We are a country, not a nation. And it was designed this way because the way Nigeria was established, it was established as a business by the Royal Niger Company. And down the line, it was hurtling down to become a nation when they amalgamated the northern and the southern protectorates to become what is now known as Nigeria. But that attempt to become a nation should have been in 1960, and it was truncated 3 years after in 1963. Ever since then, we really cannot tell where we are, because when you become a nation, you must have a destination. And that destination will be what the nation does in terms of growth. But it's just like having a child that has like childhood disabilities that were never resolved. And then they grow up to live complicated lives. That's where Nigeria is today.
If that's your view, then Nigeria is always addressed as a nation on the international scene. But if you choose to call it a country, because you have the right to, so where are we, in your own words, as a country?
I think is, why don't we start asking ourselves, where are we not? Because nobody can define where we are, honestly. You just wake up in this country called Nigeria, and in the morning time, it could be calm. By afternoon, it could be like a major storm. And by evening, you don't even know. It's like so unpredictable. And if it was a nation, there would be a timetable for morning, afternoon, and night. And where should we be? Where should we have been? We should have been competing with Brazil in producing mid-range jets. We should be like Malaysia, you know. We should be like Thailand, exporting huge amount of rice to the rest of at least the sub-African region. We should be, like South Korea, where, we started about the same time. We should be exporting vehicles to the rest of the world. We should be producing at this time. We should have some of the best doctors. And I guess we still do, because that's why they just pushed about 8,000 of them from us after COVID, UK, US, and Canada. We should have enough to feed. We should have universities that are functioning at this time, hospitals where you can get real treatments, including for your leaders. We should have a country where you get on the road and you can reach your destination, great road, railway system, and also a system in place that resolves most of our problems before they become really terrible.
Interestingly, we could go on and on. You have so many problems that face this nation called Nigeria. And interestingly, we have the independence anniversary coming up just a couple of
it's flag independence, Most countries that have independence should have economic independence, not to be throwing a flag up one pole every year.
Yes, but look at this very well. We are going to you're the presidential candidate of your party, and then you have to deal with so many issues facing us as a people today. Since you came to fame with student union leadership, back in the days, and interestingly, we're 7 months gone strike.
A strike, yes.
Yes, universities shut down, public universities across the country. If you spoke to a youth today, and I'm sure you relate to the youth since that's the number one thing on their mind. They don't want to hear any other thing else apart from why they are at home. Where are you going to throw the blame? People are saying that even the students' body, which is the National Assembly of Nigerian students, are not, they're not concerted in the way they're trying to make this happen.
I'll blame the students. I said it somewhere last week and I'll repeat it.
You say you blame who?
The students.
Why?
They should have shut down the country until this issue is resolved. In our time, this shouldn't have lasted 7 months. We would have fought the government so bad, nobody will be able to go to work, nobody will be able to do anything until they attend to us. It's their future. But the real institutional blame lies with the government, because that's why they're elected, is to keep our schools open, keep our hospitals working, keep our roads safe, and keep our kids safe in school, and provide them with the best education possible. Government has abandoned their responsibility, all responsibilities regarding education, and it is not happening to university education. That is why sometimes fundamentally people look at it and say, I think there is a de-education policy in Nigeria. That's government after government have ensured that the education system don't work. And the philosophical way to look at it is that it's easy to run a country with less educated people. The South Africans did it during apartheid. They had what they call Bantu education. It's education designed for blacks. I think Nigeria now has its own full-fledged Bantu education system, education designed for the poor. And they have education designed for the rich, and some of these private universities, in which the conflict is that those in government also have invested in this private education. One of the candidates, when he was vice president, had bought himself a license. Probably he dashed himself one. The president at that time had a license. Why would they want public education to work? And there were characters that ruined the ability to make the universities progress. So part of the problem, and this is very important, is that those who have been leading Nigeria had not gone to university. And if you don't go to university, why would you want education, tertiary education to work? The man there now didn't go to university. So he doesn't understand why tertiary education should remain open. That's why they keep telling you, well, why don't you go and beg lecturers to return? But since 30 years ago, when I was student leader here, university lecturers have been going on strike. Then it was 3 billion naira. That was all they requested. Had we paid 3 billion naira in 1993 or 94, we would have resolved this issue as far back as then and invested even more. But the universities are always seen as a problem for the government, because the government, successive governments, see university lecturers, students, not as people who deserve to be in school, but as opposition to them, because there is no intellectualism enough available in governance in this country.
Mr. Sowore, let's talk about the fact that, of course, the bulk will always stop at the table of the leader in any part of the world. I asked the question when we started the show this morning, why would anyone in the world, let's say in Nigeria, want to lead at this point in time? If you want to put into consideration all the issues that we have as the people, when you look at the present day realities in the country, what would you say aside leadership? We'll talk about leadership, which you've never minced your words with regards to what you think. What do you think is wrong with the followership?
The reason I don't go on the side of followers is that, followers are people who are assigned to a few trusted citizens the leadership position. And after that, most of the time they go to sleep. When I mean sleep, it's not they go to work. They use their brain capacities at the 10% scientific, use of brain. They don't want to bother themselves with so many. That's the reason why they, in the first place, left some people to manage their affairs. So you can't turn around and blame the people who said to you, look, we've given you this responsibility. We've given you maximum wage to handle it, giving you a jet. Sometimes in Nigeria, we have over 5 jets for one president. They built you a mansion, with countless number of rooms in it. They give you food that you can't eat. Why do you go back and blame such people? They've already done it. What they expect of you is to deliver to them things that can make their lives easy.
And whereas you're not delivering to them,
When you are not delivering,
according to your words,
yes, when you are not
still going on
delivering
in that fashion.
yes, you are. When you are not delivering, you are decimating the followership, because of course you have already planned in your mind how to, use excuses to cover up your inadequacies. Otherwise, the citizens in Nigeria are not different from the citizens in Ghana or citizens in the US. So to turn around and blame them when you have put in place all kinds of obstacles that will make them even think right. I mean, how do you wake up in the morning? People have voted for you in Lagos. They've been voting for a party in Lagos since 1999, same party. People sometimes want them to just solve the traffic problem. It's not solved. Then you go and blame the citizens who are trying to cut corners. You seize their vehicle and you auction it away. They are not cutting corners because they want to cut corners. It's because they have become desperate to get to work. I was coming here this morning. I'd already planned my way to get here on time. When I got halfway, half of the road had become a lake. You want to blame me, if I decide somehow desperately to get a show, to do something wrong. Yes, it's not right to do it, but I needed to be on your show. So sometimes people will do that, and then you then blame the citizens. No, you shouldn't be blaming citizens.
One moment, I'm not asking about blaming the citizens. I'm asking about what the citizens are not doing, which have been able to keep the government that you complain about in power all through these years.
So I'm one of those citizens that you are referring to. What happens to us? We get picked up in the middle of the night. We get sent to jail. You keep living your lives, until you come back out of jail and say, oh, Sowore is out. You understand? There are citizens who are working day and night to ensure that the feet of the government is kept to fire. But how many of the citizens will become activists? Simply, it's already bad enough that you're a Nigerian citizen. You're not safe. You can't find a job. You can't stay in school. And somebody wants you to be an activist, you understand? It's tough. It's very tough. So life ought not to be this hard for citizens. Citizens are not supposed to be tossed up and down, who they have to preach on Sunday, they have to be activists on Monday, they have to go to work, they have to feed their family. Life should not be that hard. Yes, it's great that some of us are taking all the risk. We are always on the firing line. But it's also fair not to expect citizens to do too much just simply because they want to become the right kind of citizens, especially when you have in place heartless bunch of people in government who are willing to kill at the slightest provocation, detain people at the slightest provocation, ruin their lives. Government here think about ruining lives of citizens, whereas government in other parts of the world think about taking care of lives of citizens.
Which is one of the tricky parts that you will have to follow. For example, so it's your bread and butter when we talk about development, since you have an activist background easily. But when you cross to the other side, where is the politics now, as a candidate, for example, this vexing people or vexing discussion is where you have found yourself in now, because you want to correct a situation.
Yes.
So if you say, for example, whether you've learned any lessons from 2019 where you ran and then you're here. Well, I ask this question because the other week we had Chris Okotie, who was also a presidential candidate, and he said, look, the only parties that can win elections in this country are the APC or the PDP, because they got spread. The other parties cannot make it happen. You think you missed an opportunity not to work together as a so-called third force and say, we will go against this big two before you can succeed?
First, I am diametrically opposed to the use of the word third force, because it assumes that there's a first force and second force. The truth is that, and as you have seen or saying now, is what I've always said, even on the show with you, is that all these structures that the Chris Okoties are touting as structures that are capable of winning elections are transactional structures. They are paid for by the big two failed political parties. They don't represent Nigerian people, because if they are popular, they won't need to be doing stomach infrastructure. They won't need to go and rig elections. They won't need to be in bed with the security agencies to manipulate results of elections. They won't need to staff INEC with their own people, both at the highest level and ad hoc level. They don't have the popularity to win elections. This is what we've been telling people, that it's people that make structures. And I'm sorry, I've never met Okotie before, but I think he's speaking to his own narrow understanding of global politics. Otherwise, he would have known that there is no big political party that has engaged in very big fraud and failures that should be celebrated to the point that you say, oh, we're only stuck with the two of them. No. And that's why people like us came out, to educate the public that you can actually change this trajectory of big names, big political parties, as long as they are not delivered in responsibility that they were given both in, in small places and high places. They don't deserve to be with us, and our citizens need to understand this.
Omoyele Sowore, Chris Okotie didn't emphatically talk about two main parties. He came to talk about, in fact, his own kind of aboriginal democracy. It's a philosophy, it's the kind of philosophy he's trying to push. So and that's not the topic for the day. Let's now delve into what needs to be done. You've always established what you feel have not been done, or are not being done as we speak.
Yes.
History, when people read and everything, can see a lot of things. Let me take you back today, to 1989, when you took part in the demonstration against the IMF condition for the $120 million to be used for Nigeria oil pipeline, which still remains a cash cow as a nation. This morning, the report is that 900,000 barrels per day, that's the highest we can get to even sell to the international community.
Yes.
And that's supposed to be the mainstay of our economy. How can we do it right?
You see, a number of things are wrong with oil exploration and exportation. Let me tell you, the NNPC has succeeded from Nigeria. It's probably the first part of Nigeria that became independent, to the point that Nigeria has lost control of a small company that ought to be its cash cow, as you like to call it.
You mean it metaphorically or literally? Because we have a
literally,
PIA now.
literally.
The
NNPC runs its own government. They manage their budget. They spend whatever they like. It's not only a cash cow, it's the most fraudulent, corrupt agency of government. Now, that decision has been legalized by making it a PLC, public liability company. I don't know why anybody needs to do that. It has always been a public liability anyways. And there is no country in the world where 900,000 barrels of oil, or 700,000 is how much they steal now, can just depart the shores of a country without official collusion. It's not possible. Don't let us be deceiving ourselves by saying, oh, these people are stealing crude. No. The kind of crude that they're stealing is half of what the country exports. The crude just don't disappear.
Much more, like 90% according to reports.
Crude of that, so that means there are barges with trackers, with modern equipment, running into Nigeria waters and walking away or cruising away with huge amount of our resources. There is no way that is possible without official collusion inside Aso Rock. I will be very emphatic about it. There must be a bunch of people in Aso Rock who are colluding with these oil thieves, and the oil thieves are international oil thieves. They are not the kind of people who are walking around with buckets and 4-liter containers to steal. These are big time thieves, international thieves, ITTs.
How do we fix this?
We have to get rid of the people who encourage them. That's why people like us keep saying, vote for people of integrity, vote for vibrant people, vote for honest people, vote for people who have exposure, international understanding of how thieves operate. And if there's any candidate today in Nigeria who has tracked a lot of thieves internationally, it's me. I used to work on,
The campaigns have not started, Mr.
I'm not campaigning to you. Right. I'm just saying, I'm just saying to you that without one person who is the new sheriff in town, who understands the rudeness of how they operate, you're not going to get them. You can't vote for one of the people who own these badges, some of them are participating in what we are talking about now. I expect this to change. You have to vote for somebody who can come out there, go to the root of the problems, Find out how many barges enter this country because they have tracking devices on them. Find out whether or not they are metered. That's another thing a lot of people don't know. A lot of these barges have more than one tank inside of them. One is metered, the other one is not metered. So it's just like you ask somebody to go and buy something for you, right, and on their way back, they buy something for themselves. That's what the NNPC people are doing in Nigeria. It's the same thing that happened with customs and NNPC a few weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, when the custom had to come out that the NNPC is lying, right, that we are consuming 60 million liters of...
Did you have proofs? Because this...
Which proof do you need if custom is saying, if the custom is a governmental organization, if the head of customs come out to you and say, hey, you are lying, we are not consuming 60 million liters of petrol on a daily, gasoline on a daily basis. Nobody has debunked that. But don't forget, also 2 weeks ago, the GMD of NNPC, I think Mele Kyari, came out and said, yes, we are losing 700,000 barrels of crude on a daily basis. And he also said it, that it is because there's high level collusion between the people who are stealing this crude and those people who are buying or taking them out. Don't forget, and this is part of our problem, institutional memory is low. We forget too quickly. There was a barge that has capacity for about 400,000 or something. Some ridiculous barge came into Nigeria waters last 2 weeks. They said they couldn't catch it until they got to Equatorial Guinea. There's no barge that moves more than 13 knots. That's their speed. So there's no Navy ship in Nigerian waters that could catch a barge that's suspected of stealing crude.
Right. So clearly, you're going to have a lot of things to resolve, especially with the hierarchy of how things move, whether land or sea borders.
Yes.
There's a discussion. I mean, we can build a village on this oil discussion.
Yeah, but it has to be broken down in a way that is not made to look as if it's a complex problem.
Now, one of the least complex issues you can think about is this issue around subsidy.
I catch thieves for a living.
Nobody seems to be able to want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, the issue around subsidy. Yes. They don't want to let it go free fall, and they can allow the forces of market and demand to determine how much petrol should sell at the pump station. No one wants to say whether they will take it off if they get in, or they will let it still be there, even though the evidence shown by the government says, look at how much we're spending daily and weekly.
The issue is resolved by some of the revelations I just gave you. First is to find out how many barrels or liters of oil are we buying or consuming. What it looks like is that people are just using Nigeria as a transit to import gasoline and sell in the neighboring countries where the prices are high and making a killing out of it. It's the same thing with the currency. You know, people are round-tripping currencies in banks and the central bank, and you expect your currency to be stable. You are deceiving yourself. So you resolve that first, and you discover that we are only subsidizing those who are sabotaging the country. The subsidy issue will be resolved when you make your refineries work. The problem is that you take out crude, you go and refine them. The price of the crude is determined by the refiners. When you bring them back, the price of the finished product is also determined by the refiners. So solution, fix your refineries. And people always make it look like, oh, it's difficult to fix refineries. But we just helped one man here in Lekki to build one of the biggest refineries in the world. Nigeria was responsible for helping him do that. So why is it that we can't build our own refineries, but we can help someone to build a refinery that will be selling to Nigerians, even though we are the ones who ensure that he got all the foreign currencies he needed to finish that product? We got him our security agencies to ensure that all the villagers around the place were kept at bay, some killed. He got the support he needed. But the government that gave all the support cannot build a single refinery. Niger Delta militants are refining crude. They are selling gasoline, particularly diesel, to the country. If Niger Delta militants can refine crude, it's a shame that Nigeria cannot refine its own crude. Shame, shame, shame.
Mr. Sowore, so that we'll cover on as many grounds as we can for the purpose of this review. So let's talk about the security situation in the country, which
Yes.
many people are even worried could, have an impact on the general elections come 2023. What's your view as to how to handle it? Asking you how it is would be like what we've heard you talk about severally. How can it be fixed at this point?
3 ways. And you have to have a timeline to resolve these 3 levels. But the most important is, of course, to gather all the resources we have now, all the international connections we can get, including, if necessary, bringing in mercenaries to stop the bleeding. And when I mention mercenaries, people look at it and say, what happened to your
the
armed
military,
forces? And then how can you say that? Well, the armed forces itself has become mercenary to bandits. They themselves have become mercenary to corruption. So you want to solve the problem immediately, just swallow your pride. Stop the bleeding, because we did it before. They almost got rid of Boko Haram. When Buhari came, he pulled away the mercenaries. Some of them, we are still owing them money now because we terminated their contracts wrongly. Just like we did for Ajakuta, which cost us $494 million. That was just, they claimed they just resolved. The second aspect of it is to start rebuilding our security agencies as units that does what they are designed for. The police should be in charge of internal security. Police should stop carrying bags for madams and serving food and stop guarding houses of criminals in Abuja. I've lived in Abuja for 3 years, never seen that many empty houses before in the Asokoro area. All of them have 6 policemen in front of them. Nobody's staying there. Withdraw all those people. Withdraw the ones. I've seen civilians who are protected by over 40 policemen, and you're asking, what are they doing? It's because you created a country where there's inequality, then you are running away from it. So you rebuild your security agencies to be able to collect intelligence. That's the second phase now. Retrain, motivate, compensate. There's no reason why you put out somebody, give somebody AK-47 and you pay him 50,000 naira. Or you ask somebody who has not eaten, in this case policemen, to be driving around to monies owned by banks, in armored cars. You are wasting your time. The moment you don't pay a policeman very well, you have hired an armed robber. He will use that gun to protect himself and also make money for himself and his family. Nobody should be paying any policeman less than 150,000 naira at the rate at which you are currency now, or even 200,000. Because the banks they are protecting, they are not getting paid less than that amount. The man who has the most amount of stress or job to do is the man that's protecting the public. They must be our first priority. It's the same thing I think of teachers. I think they should be better paid because without a teacher, you can't become a doctor, you can't become a lawyer. And this point I'm making, let me land there, has been shown by one investigation that was done at the Senate last week. Pencon, this pension companies, said that their minimum wage of their staff is 2.4 million naira. Why are you paying police peanuts and you expect them to protect you? You're wasting your time. It's almost unconscionable.
Before you get to your third approach in resolving...
But I wanted to get to the third, yes.
Yes, you talked about timelines, and I don't know whether it may be sometimes considered to be presumptuous to say I will set the timeline in dealing with it, because this government and the previous government have shown us fine examples of how hopeless timelines can be. I mean, you have going on the Niger Delta, this occupation for several years.
The interesting thing about this government, if you paid attention to the government, they gave nobody any timelines. A government that came into office, we forgot already, and didn't choose ministers for 6 months. They gave you no timeline. They had told you from that time that they came to do whatever they liked.
No, okay, but I mean, they said at some point, technically defeated, give us 6 weeks, give us 6 months.
I'm saying that, based on what I understand, I've understudied so many of these problems, There have been a lot of countries, even around West Africa, that went through war. And after the wars ended, they were able to, grasp their security issues within a year and then start rebuilding their security agencies. But ultimately, which is the third, is economic security. You have to figure out how these young people get a job. when they get out of the university for you to have real security, because if they don't, you are wasting your time. They can't stop crime. Even when you talk to the bandits, some of them who are educated, we interview them from time to time. They say to us, look, these people have cheated us. We see governors with 200 cars in their convoy. We are in the farm. We can't even find fertilizer. So we discovered that it's probably easier to make money by buying a 30,000 naira AK-47. You know, hold somebody to ransom, and you make 5 million, sometimes 10 million. You buy more guns, you keep about 5 of them. Great investment. You don't have to go and wait in the farm, you know, waiting for your corn to mature. And that's where we are now. It is the leaders and their lifestyles that gave the ideas to so many of these bandits and terrorists that made them feel like, well, it's better to do it this way. It's the same thing with the Niger Delta region. A lot of the militants, as we speak, there are militants that have been on federal payroll since they started amnesty. Why would you want to go to work if you can just pretend that you are a militant and you're getting 65,000 naira every month without lifting a finger?
Oh, sincerely speaking,
even federal workers get 30,000, militants get 65. Bandits, oh, those ones are like NNPC workers in the area of insecurity.
All right. I told you that I'll come back to the issue of you catching thieves. Let's still stay beside just for a moment. Now, let's dwell on the issue of youth empowerment in the country. We've seen through the hashtag #EndSARS protest and some other issues in the country where we've seen our youth really speak out. What could be going on? How can the youth of the country get a better deal?
Well, what youths do in other parts of the world is they take power, because nowhere in the world is anybody going to hand you power on a platter of gold. And we've been saying that to Nigerian youths. I've been saying it since I was in the university when I was 22 years old. I've understudied all these old people or older people, and some of them were young people during our time, but they have become old people now, and they are tormenting the country. And we've been saying it until good people step up and take power. You're not going to have a country that cares about youth. And I think EndSARS, for instance, opened the eyes of the youth to the powers they have. And I hope they don't get it wrong this time, because you can have a lot of power and misdirect your energy in the wrong direction and you are back. This youth empowerment you're talking about started around 2012 when they had occupied Nigeria. Youth came out, they fought against subsidy. It was their fight against subsidy that made Nigeria to discover that they were importing fake fuel with barges that had sunk 20 years before. The trial started, it never ended. Then subsequently, 2015 came. There's some youth participation, but again, it was misdirected. 2020, EndSARS came. Most powerful empowerment, in my own view, psychologically and mentally and physically for youth in Nigeria. They did the best, but they could have pushed it a little bit longer beyond 20th of October, and we'll be having a different conversation today. That was a revolution that was about to happen that did not happen. 2022 now, massive interest of young people in the electoral process, but I've not seen a lot of young people as candidates. In fact, the young people are following people in their 60s to take power from those who are in their hundreds. You haven't learned your lesson, because they said to you, if you are 35, you can be president. Look for somebody who is within that age bracket. In which case, I might not even be qualified if the young people present a vibrant young person. But I will be happier to live in a country where the next president of Nigeria we don't have to be dragging them around in wheelbarrows and wheelchair. Find a young, vibrant person, or a bunch of vibrant young people. Make your own mistakes too, and learn from it. And don't let people be telling you that you are not too young to run, and when they are signing the document, they say you got to wait. And by the time they finish their own term, those people who went to sign the document are no longer youths.
All right. You've just said that it doesn't necessarily have to be you if we have to go by the analogy that you presented at this point in time.
But I won't support anybody in their 60s.
Okay.
For the leadership of Nigeria.
Whereas there are no younger people, or there are younger people who the younger people are not following. Because it's for one thing for a young person to come out,
it's not that
then for you to have the support.
It's not that they're not following. This is where political consciousness is important as well. Young people need to go out of their way to find consciousness. Don't let it be fed to them. Like I said, you can be vibrant and be misdirected in your action if you're not conscious. You understand? I want to see more young people present themselves as governorship candidates, as presidential candidates. At this time, we should be having a conversation about if Sowore is not too old. To be a presidential candidate.
Are you too old?
No, I'm not. Of course,
not too, okay.
When I walked into this place, what did you say? Like,
I didn't say anything. He actually said something.
You're like, you don't look your age.
He said that.
So I can definitely mix with people in their 30s and you'll be like, oh, are you in your 20s?
You don't look like the 20. Let me tell you.
No, I'm saying, I'm not saying that I'm in my 20s. We're having banters here, but I'm also very seriously saying there should have been more young people who are running for office and not young people who are energized or misdirected to be supporting people who are too old. Our problem is not that people get old. Biden is very old man.
Oh, okay.
But it's the age of the ideas, like we always say, that's the problem. All these older people have nothing to offer. There's nobody who is a governor for 2 terms that's done anything amongst them.
How time flies when we're having a great discussion,
yes.
What they say, and I wish we could go on and on.
Okay.
We've been allowed to go a couple of more minutes. This is very important because you say, look at people around the governors, members of National Assembly, but you're going to have to work with them, or you have people in your party that will execute your policies.
Yes.
What's the plan? Are you going to have more Omoyele Sowores across board, or you're going to have to work with what you have existing on the ground?
No, there are plenty of us around. So there are 200 million people in this country, 200 million. And out of those 200 million, there are at least some 50 million people who are more mentally, physically, intellectually sound to run a fantastic country. Those you can't find in country are out there waiting at the border to come in, the diaspora. You understand? Who is one of the most powerful treasury officers in the U.S.? A Nigerian.
But they're not running for office. That's the problem.
No, you see, the person running for office, it might be just a few, but it's about finding the right people and the right balance to do the work. You hear about Obama a lot. I read books about Obama after he left office. Sometimes they even complain that the man is a bit lazy. That's a complaint because he has all these people. But one thing you can't take away from him is like the moment you give him the project you are doing, put him on the podium, he will inspire the whole country to support it. That's how he came about Obamacare. You understand? This was his own signature healthcare system that he created. There were a lot of people who were opposed to it. But what he said when he was launching it is what people kept hearing, how to keep being healthy. Even Trump, as much as he hated Obama, could not get rid of Obamacare.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. The campaigns are around the corner. 28th of September, just a few, 9 days to go. And many electorates can't wait to really hear for those whose voices are yet to be heard fully as to what they have for Nigerians. What are you looking forward to?
Get out to vote. That's my most important thing. People can get confused with rallies, even social media hypes. But if people don't go out to vote, it doesn't matter how many likes or retweets you get. Instagram, Facebook, if people don't get out to vote. So our strategy is, how do we get people to vote? Reach out to them wherever they are. Those who don't have the PVC, make sure that they collect it so that those who carry around what we call PVC, the poverty verification card, don't overwhelm those who genuinely want the country to change. But there are a lot of people who have registered and have not gotten their PVC. You go get it. Make sure you're ready to vote with it. Don't vote with your feet. because we are in a part of Lagos where there's a huge population of voters, but during elections, they don't vote. They'll travel abroad and they call it, it's the election of, I hope, no violence, and then they'll come back after that. And then they'll be wondering why non-entities become governors in their states. When I said non-entities, I mean it. So.
All right. We have to go now, but I did promise I was going to ask you a question within 30 seconds if you can. You said you catch thieves for a living,
Yeah.
while some others also accuse you of the same thing, that
Like
you
what?
collude with people, that you also are a
Who
thief.
did I collude with?
Well, you said you catch people. Some people say that they catch you too. How would you say...
Who caught me? No, you should be able to say it now. You just don't throw
I'm a journalist, so...
I am a journalist too.
I know you're a journalist, and I know you are also a
so because
proprietor.
I don't like you guys to keep things hanging in
One
such a way that
moment.
they say, oh, Sowore couldn't answer that question.
One moment.
No,
You should
ask
answer
your question.
this.
Let it land.
Okay, in 30 seconds, how do you think the idiosyncrasies of those who are vying, all of the presidential candidates, will
Yes.
play out during the campaign in 30 seconds?
Well, I don't decide how people campaign, but I'm going to go out there and run my own race convincingly and let Nigerian people decide who they want to vote for. Like you said, if they decide to vote for thieves again, their own lot. But I hope this time around, people who are watching, listening to radio shows that where I speak, who attest to the fact that our ideas are very clear and solutions for how to fix the country is well laid out, should take a decision. I'm tired of hearing from people saying, oh, Sowore, we know you are good, but, we think you can't win. We think it's the thieves that can win, or these derelict politicians. Come on, how can you do that to yourself?
Okay.
Vote for the right person in election so that your children can go to school, so that you don't have to deal with 7 months of ASU strike, so that your country is not taken over by ragtag bandits, so that, NNPC and their top officials are not selling your crude and complaining at the same time, so that you can have real economic development and not subsidies and what I call empowerment, which is not real development.
All right, we're going to have to leave it at that, and we hope we can touch base with you again.
Absolutely.
Once the campaigns begin in earnest and see how it's going with you. But thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Omoyele Sowore. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right, we go on a quick break and we come back. Road 2023 continues, and we'll be talking about something, another discussion around the elections. Please stay with us.